Good morning, all. I just want to talk about the benefits of spiritual consistency, and the Olympics might have triggered it because we see, like Matt was saying, and a lot of athletes, especially before the Olympics, they like, especially the last 2 years, that they can see this consistency in their performance, everything they're doing in their life, their routine and their structure, because there's so many people in their team. But I just thought the greatest benefit is spiritual consistency, and it's something that's tremendously helped my life. And if we just go on and we'll just turn into Daniel. And we're just going to chapter 1, verse 8. And here we see a time where Daniel was obviously taken as a slave, carried into Babylon, and the king had these people who were, there for science, intelligence, to teach the language and everything like that. But the Babylonians wanted to make Daniel do something that he just didn't want to do. He didn't want to lose that consistency of serving God. And we just see here, verse, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore, a request of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So we see here just in chapter 1, he set this pattern of, I just want to stay consistent serving the Lord God. And that's a great thing for all of us in our life is, I don't know, when I first came to the Lord in 1982, it was a very hard thing to just coming out of a dysfunctional family. I really had no consistency at all. I didn't even, I just struggled with day-to-day life and day-to-day routines. But the great thing, as soon as I come to the Lord in 1982, I met so many great saints. And as Matt just pointed out in Hebrews about not forsaking the gathering of ourselves as the manner of some, and just getting that consistency of just getting to the meeting. And at that meeting, you might have prayer, you hear the gifts, you hear the testimonies, and then midweek the house meetings, the same thing. And all of a sudden I noticed that my first 6 months, like my mum, and I've said this many times in my talk, but it's just glory to the Lord. My mum was an English teacher, a very intelligent lady, but she used to always encourage me just to sort of, speak good English, which I still find trouble now, as you can gather when I talk. But because I used to swear a lot, and she'd just come on, just put 1 or 2 words in the middle, because everything was bleep, 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 bleep. And all of a sudden, when I first come to the Lord, a few brothers, when I was living at Dew Street, Theberton, they used to come home for lunch, and they'd have this 10 minutes prayer, go back to work. 10 minutes prayer, go back to work. And I remember I was just saying to them, look, that's good for you, mate. I'm just not ready. Don't feel I'm at that stage yet, And all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, I wasn't working, struggling to find a job. And I just started, and then I thought, no, I'm going to try this. And within a few months, the swearing went, disappeared. And all of a sudden, I thought, wow, God has given me the benefits of spiritual consistency. And I had trouble also giving up cigarettes. And same thing again, just there was a prayer and fast on, different things that I could get involved in. And people were taking me to my first outreach, which is really hard. That was a real struggle. And then, I was sort of, where I was living with the brothers, I was sort of sneaking out the house, going for a walk, a few ciggies here, a few ciggies there. Because before I come to the Lord, I used to smoke 40 a day, and if I was drinking alcohol, which is regular, I'd go up to about 60. And I did this little sacrifice. I think I'd seen it on a Jimi Hendrix clip. And I just got my packet of Viscount. I threw this match, a little bit, a few papers, and it just went boom. That wasn't quite a bonfire or anything. And I just started praying in the Spirit. And I just remember this talk, this encouragement of, and all of a sudden from that day on, bang, never went back, and It's just an incredible miracle. I didn't have those tools before I come to the Lord. And if we just go down now into Daniel chapter 5. And verse 1, and Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, while he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which is in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, his concubines might drink there. It's a pretty massive party, wasn't it? Especially when you've got 1,000 of his lords. A lot of people sort of party in the old, let's have a big party. And verse 3, then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives and his concubines might drink therein. And we just go to verse 5. In the same hour come forth the finger of a man's hand and wrote against a candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance was changed and his thoughts troubled him. I tell you what, mate, did this spoil the party? Woo-hoo. You know, this guy was, I don't know, it was a modern day Coachella, that massive concert or they have in America. I don't know what it was, but let's get into this. And all of a sudden, within a second of time, his thoughts troubled, so his joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against another. I don't know if this looked like that modern dance that we saw with Reagan in the Olympics or something like that, but, you can imagine the knees, and he's just, all of a sudden, everything in his life had completely changed. And then verse 7, the king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, the soothsayers, and the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation shall be clothed with scarlet and of a chain of gold about his neck and shall be third ruler in the kingdom. Then came in all the king's wise men, but could not read the writing nor make known the king's interpretation. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance changed in him, and his lords were astonished. And history sort of says Babylon might have been between 150,000 to 250,000 people. But it's funny, isn't it? Here's this one guy, and we go back to his father, Nebuchadnezzar. And Daniel was just a humble, fantastic guy who just lived and breathed consistency in his relationship with God. And it just makes such a difference to all of us, whatever we're doing, whoever we are, wherever we are. That's the great thing with a personal relationship with God, And we see here, and it's funny, isn't it, that out of all those people, there was only one person could answer this question in the whole kingdom. And that was the person that had that great relationship with God. Now, the queen, by reason, I think this was obviously, it's talking about his wife back before in early chapter 5. This is his mother-in-law. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. There is a man in the kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of the Father light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar, thy father, king, say, Father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. For as much an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting dreams, and showing of hard sentences, and this is a bit I love, and dissolving of doubts. And that's the greatest thing with us, isn't it? I grew up in a life of doubt. I still get a lot of self-doubt. It's something that, we all go through, and doubts is just something that can kick in and it can take a while to get out. And we heard a great testimony in the house meeting on Wednesday night about stress and amongst other testimonies, and just the benefit of prayer, the benefit of coming to the Lord. And just heard this brother, and that's what consistency the Lord brings us. No matter what we're going through, our doubts will get dissolved. We've got answers. You know, greater is he that's in us than he that's in the world. We've got the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, you know, and it's just an incredible thing to know that the power of God dissolves all doubts. And it just says here, we're found in the same Daniel who the king named Belshazzar. Now let Daniel be called. Let Daniel be called, and he will show you the interpretation. And we know that he showed him the interpretation many, you know, like Belshazzar lost his kingdom. He didn't have a relationship with God. And that's why it's funny, isn't it? This guy who's got everything, yet he had nothing. He couldn't resolve the doubts on what he saw. And we'll just go over, just to wind it up. And now we'll just go into chapter 6, verse 1. And here we see, actually just go back a verse before, 5:31. And Darius, the Median, took the kingdom being 62 years old. Funny enough, he came in. Obviously, the management structure changed, and we see here Darius set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princesses might give account unto him, and the king should have no damage. Then Daniel was preferred. And I'll tell you what, this guy was a great manager. He had a few brains, didn't he? You know, we see Belshazzar had thousands of lords, but no knowledge of God. And because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against him. What an incredible thing, isn't it? You know, he's just prophesied, he's resolved the doubts, he spoke the truth, everything came to pass. Next minute he comes in, new king, new systems, but they would have known that he was a slave. He'd come into Babylon out of, you know, and there was this incredible jealousy, you know, and that's what happens, doesn't it? It happens in companies, boardrooms, whatever. Things can happen, and, you know, he said, she said, this said, why's he, why not me? And even in the Old Testament, you know, but God's an incredible, righteous judge. You know, he'll never let us down, will he? Never leave us nor forsake us. He dissolves our doubts. And that's the benefit of that consistent looking to him. And we just see here, and we'll just go over, and then verse 4, then the president and prince sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against Daniel, except we find it concerning the law of his God. And what an incredible thing is he just maintained this consistency. And Daniel, here he was in chapter 5, where he'd sort of disappeared in Babylon. You know, from the time of Nebuchadnezzar to Belshazzar, he was gone 20, 30 years. And you sort of know in chapter 7, 8, 9, he had dreams and visions and incredible things. But I just want to finish off in verse 10. Now, when Daniel knew the writing was signed, he went into his house, his windows being open, in his chamber, towards Jerusalem. You know, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. And this is what he was doing, as he did before. He just had this incredible consistency with God. He never ever stopped it. Even when he disappeared year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And you just see that we know what happened. And for the sake of time, I won't go into it, but these 120 princesses who were the new board members, lost their job, and it wasn't like people walked in and got sacked and dismissed. They were they had to go down into the lion's den, because the king realised, didn't he, that Daniel's God was the true God and the only God. And that's like us, and like Matt said, we're in the last days. And if you stick to that spiritual consistency, and there's no condemnation, we all go through things, but the benefits are it'll dissolve self-doubt. It'll give you self-confidence, God's confidence. And you know what? We've got so much to look forward to. And all the people said,